Well, hello, everybody out there. I pray that you are safe. I have my guest with me, Toni Collier. Hey, Toni. I said that because we had a little tornado scare earlier. I don't know about the rest of you guys out there, and certainly our prayers are with South Florida, the Panhandle.
That's what it's called.
Yes, y'all forgive me, but our prayers are definitely with you all if you're experiencing any of the damages from the storm. And with that said, we are going to dive into our interview tonight. I have none other than Toni J. Collier.
Whoa.
And before I tell you a little bit more about her, let me just say if you've never watched one of the broadcasts, my name is Kia Stevens, and I'm the creator of the Father Swap blog. And the blog was created to help women exchange their father wounds for the love of God the Father, whether that be that a woman is father wounded because of divorce, abandonment, abuse, incarceration, drug addiction, alcoholism, a physically present dad but emotionally absent, or a premature death. We exist to serve you. And this is why I'm so excited to have my guest, Toni Collier. She has started a new venture entitled Broken Crayons Still Color. And I know you're going to be blessed by that, what she shares. And then subsequently, I hope you go over to her website and check it out because she has resources for the hurting. So, with that said, let me tell you a little bit about Toni. She's just such an amazing woman. I've known her for a short time. I stalked her for a longer time than I have known her. I'm not lying. But anyway, so now I know her in the flesh. Like I have a relationship with her, not just one with me and it's one sided. Okay, so let's talk about it. Toni is a communicator, host, and consultant at North Point Ministries, founded by Andy Stanley. And she's an on camera personality at the Rethink Group, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, public school speaker, co founder of the Resource Group, which is a faith based consulting firm, and creator of Broken Crayons Still Color. She's doing a lot, y'all. A Broken Crayon Still Color, just to give you a little overview, is a blog and an interactive devotional brand. With a degree in business, logistics, and entrepreneurship, she has used her talents to grow churches, ministries, and businesses in the area of student ministry, creative marketing, leadership, innovation, and strategic planning. Toni is known for her vibrant personality, her charisma, and all around welcoming spirit. And I'm just going to add something to her bio, her genuineness. Is that a word? Genuineness? She is very genuine, and you're going to tell that tonight. And she has a passion to help women and teens believe in the idea that in a world that says you have to be broken to be used, the truth is God will use us right in the middle of our mess. Or you have to be whole to be used. God will use us in our mess. So I'm excited to just dive into this conversation with Toni. I know you're going to be encouraged. So let's go deep. We're gonna go into the deep. We're not wading in the shallow end of the ocean. Toni, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Man, I had a very interesting childhood. I grew up in Texas, the best state in the world. I'm gonna put that out there.
Largest and grandest. You know I'm from Texas. You know I'm from Texas.
Listen, it's hard. Okay. When I was so I have 3 older brothers. When I was in the 3rd grade, we were a blended family. My mom was married. She was in an abusive marriage before she had my brother. And my dad had 2 sons, 2 different marriages. And then my mom and dad came together and they had me. So 3 older brothers. And unfortunately, when I was in the 3rd grade, my mom was really, really sick. So she had a massive stroke. She was paralyzed on her left side. She had spasms in her face all shifted to the left. And so she was unable to work. And at that point, my dad had to work a whole bunch. I mean, it's just, he didn't have a high school diploma. And so he had to work a whole bunch. And my dad's, they both come from the country. So my mom and dad were both from Louisiana. My mom's got this kind of city thing that she's always wanted to be. But my dad, he grew up with a really hard father, very verbally abusive, very physically abusive as well, just very hard on them and him and his siblings. And he kind of brought that same mentality into our family dynamic. And it was just hard. You know, he had 3 boys, and he had this little girl. And it kind of almost felt like my dad was raising like another son. And so
wow.
he was supposed to be incredibly independent, hard, aggressive, didn't really have nurturing. My mom was really sick, didn't really learn about makeup and girly things and washing my face and, you know, all those different things. I was outside like the boys mowing the lawn. And my dad, because he worked so much, just really wasn't present. So thankfully my parents were married. But my mom was really sick and my dad just worked all the time. His shifts would probably be 5 a.m. in the morning to 9 p.m. at night, come home, eat dinner, go to bed, do it all over again. Wasn't really present for the extracurricular activities. And just, again, he took that verbally abusive, that really hardcore, never going to say I love you, never going to say I'm proud of you, you just got to run and win type mentality into our family dynamic. And so I grew up really, really fast. I started driving when I was 12, helping my mom with hospitals. I got a hardship license.
I'm sorry.
I know.
I'm constantly learning new things about you. What do you mean you were driving when you were 12?
So my mom,
places or like just on the pasture? So
my mom was really sick. She had to stop working. My 2 older brothers were with their moms. And the brother right over me, which was my mom's son, was just extremely sensitive. And so I was the only one taking care of my mom. So when I was 8, she had the stroke and she was paralyzed. She couldn't drive anymore. So someone had to take her to her doctor's appointments, and my dad couldn't because he was working, and my brothers were elsewhere.
Wow.
And so I had to start driving. So she taught me how to drive while driving her type thing. And then at 12, I got a hardship license that I was able to drive her around with her in the car, doctor's appointments, et cetera, et cetera. So started driving super young. It was crazy. So went through middle school, high school. She just went back and forth with, medical issues. My dad's still just a very hard man. When I was 13, lost my virginity, kind of really honestly felt like I was just fully grown woman. Because I had just been raising myself, and I've been alone, and I've been, essentially taking care of my mom. And my counselor nowadays talks about it in this way. It's called parentified child syndrome. And what happens is there's a natural progression of when you're growing up as a child and your parents are kind of deteriorating in a sense. That's a big word, but you guys kind of meet in the middle, which is right around like 30 years old. You kind of meet in that middle and you kind of look them eye to eye. And then, as they kind of continue to get older, you continue to get older in so many ways. And you guys kind of do this natural progression of you starting to take care of them. And well, that happened so early on in my life that I had this parentified child syndrome. So I felt like I'd become the parent in the relationship. So at 13 years old, I'm sneaking out of the house, taking the car. I mean, my mom at this point had gotten a lot healthier and it kind of started getting involved. She couldn't ever go back to work. But it was this really hard tension of, I'm an adult, I raised myself. You guys don't get to come in and raise me now. You just don't. And so I was very rebellious, very angry, wanted to get out of the house very quickly. And so I ended up leaving the house at 16. So I graduated high school in 3 years. I went on this accelerated track and was like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to be a part of this. Y'all, I just can't believe y'all are trying to come into my life.
But you weren't a problem child because you had to be doing good in school in order to graduate at 16. So you were all the way gone.
What was interesting about the dynamic, and it's funny now because, every gift has a shadow, and the shadow side of my dad's gift, if you will, was that it was extreme, hardcore, verbal dominance. It was always pushing for more. There was never I'm proud of you. It was, you make a mistake, it's an excuse, et cetera, et cetera. The shadow side of that as a child is you miss out on the nurturing and the confidence that you need. You build up insecurities, pride comes into play, et cetera, et cetera. But the gift part about it is, depending on what type of child you are, you either fold or you fly. And I was the kind that was like, I'm going to prove them wrong. And so I always stayed the course on being successful, being in organizations, captain of the cheerleading team. I wanted to be the best. And I call it, as me and my counselor unpack it now, it's I ping back and forth between validation and accolades. The validation I wanted from men, because I didn't have it from my father, was that losing my virginity at 13, dating a guy that was 4 or 5 years older than me, sneaking out of the house. But I would ping back to accolades. Being the captain of the cheerleading team, being on the step team, debate team, theater, going to big competitions and being an actress and all those different things. So I pinged back and forth trying to get validation and approval. So
yeah. Girl, you saying so much so early. But
we're going deep right now.
What'd you say?
Yeah, we're going deep right now.
I know we're going deep. There's a book called Captivating by Lisa Eldridge.
Okay, yes.
Okay, yes. So she describes this scene where she's standing on the coffee table trying to get her father to notice her. And she just wants him to say, you know, am I lovely? Am I beautiful? Am I worth your time? And all that she learned as she's standing on the coffee table is no, you're not. Get off the coffee table. But I'm saying it to say that what you're describing is so common for women who desire validation, whether it be from the father or the mother, that you're constantly achieving, saying, well, I mean, you can't be built that way, but then you can, when you find yourself needing that and not knowing who you are without that, you're constantly performing the performance trap. You know, to be seen, to be valued, to finally be affirmed. So, I mean, I'm hearing all that in the accolades that you're describing. You said it first.
He did. Yes. So, you know, let that and myself work 3 jobs. It wasn't like I didn't have parents that, you know, couldn't help, but I was just, it was this, I'm going to take ownership of my life. And there was always this subconscious, one day you guys are going to see, or Dad, you're going to see how actually strong I am. And what was interesting is that as I started to separate from them and really I shunned myself, I really think, from my family, really hardcore. My brothers, I'd stopped speaking to them. People didn't even know I had brothers. They were like, what? We didn't. I was like, I know, it's okay. It was weird. You know, as I started to do that, it's almost as if my parents started to lean in even more. And it was such an interesting kind of like seesaw effect of, I've been wanting all of this attention and you guys didn't give it to me. And now I'm gone. And you're like, wow, we missed half of her life. But I went off to college and, you know, I don't know if it was God because I wasn't saved, but somehow, some way, God kind of turned the dial down on my validation and turned it way up on accolades. So when I was in college, you know, I had all the choice and freedom in the world to mess with guys, et cetera, et cetera. But really, I just started like focusing on school. And I mean, I was probably in every organization. People were like, what are you doing? You know, and I was like the missus of my university. It was like Mrs. Sam Houston University or whatever. And because I just done so much and I just wanted to win really, really bad. Like I needed it. And went throughout college. I decided to go through college and do an accelerated program again. Went to college, fall, spring, summer, graduated in 3 years at 19. So I had my bachelor's.
You didn't want to go home. You didn't want to go home.
I was like, nah, this is where I live. This is what I do. Honestly, it's like I created this healthier bubble for myself. And I just kind of needed that time to just exist and to be alone and to build. It's like a new world for myself. It was so interesting. But then I was getting ready to graduate, was supposed to go to law school, and I met a guy.
It's always a guy. It's always one.
Foundation Dow was, and I can just vividly remember my friends being like, "You're gonna get older, you're gonna be a cat lady, you're not gonna have anybody," because I really hadn't dated anyone in college. And everyone was just like, you're not going to have a boyfriend, you're not going to get married, you're going to be successful, and you're not going to have anyone. And so there's this guy, and they're like, you need to go on a date with him. And I'm feeling pressured. And, you know, what I've learned throughout counseling and just ministry and everything is when you don't heal a place,
girl,
and it enters back into your life, it is as if you just swooped under the rug and it just built even bigger. And when it came back, it just overtakes your life.
Right.
Because if you haven't been healed from it, you just kind of pushed it to the side. And Lord, that thing came back. I decided not to go to law school. I took my scholarship money to go to law school and decided to move from Texas with this guy to Georgia. And my parents were like, what are you doing? Man, like, no. They were so angry. You're throwing your life away. And, you know, me, I'm like, I'm not listening to anything you're saying at all. I don't care. And it was this moment where, you know, you wish you had that healthy relationship with your parents so that you can have that conversation and really process through those decisions. But I was so stubborn and so hurt. I just wanted to escape, and I left. I was like, bye, Houston. See y'all later. I'm with this guy that I've been with for 6 months. That's it.
6 months.
Oh, yeah. I made the decision when we were dating for 3 months. You know, you look back on it now and you're like, what? It was not. I wasn't making enough.
But you know what? In hindsight, I mean, you do what you know to do at that time. You do what's right.
Yeah.
At that time. And I mean, now that I'm older, I'm almost 40. But I mean, I look back and I'm like, I didn't have the tools. I didn't have any tools. Now that I've done all this research on what a father is supposed to teach his daughter about men, I'm like, well, dang, it's a wonder I made it.
Thank you.
Because I didn't have any type of instruction, and I was just kind of out there willy-nilly figuring out the male-female relationships on my own. So I thank God that I made it. He was there. God had to have been there. He had to have been there.
He carried us through out here because, good Lord, the grace, the mercy, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that was my childhood. I think, you know, a few other details. My mom did the best that she could.
Right.
It's one of the things that I look back on and I realize through counseling and, you know, EMDR treatment, the trauma treatment, you know, my mom did everything that she could to really at least help me accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish.
Wait, what's that? What's trauma treatment?
So EMDR is a form of trauma treatment. And what typically happens is that the counselor or the counterpart, or the trained EMDR specialist, puts you in some kind of a REM sleep. It's a REM state, which is you're conscious but aware of certain thoughts and memories that you can go back to in detail.
Wow.
The goal of it is this. When you look at our lives, it's similar to a bookshelf. And when you look at a bookshelf, you've got all your books just perfectly lined up, or this way to this way. But what happens when something traumatic happens, like an unhealthy relationship with your father, is a book just gets pulled out. Not all the way, but it kind of just gets in the way. And so as you're going and you're journeying through your life, you hit these things that stop you from processing things well, having healthy relationships, reacting in a healthy way. EMDR treatment takes you back to the book, wherever it is in your life, and puts it in, and it just pushes that thing back in there.
Girl.
So it reconciles that. And the first trauma treatment that I did was on my dad. And I have a Christian counselor. She's incredible. Her name is Jennifer Stucker. She's our family counselor. And the first trauma treatment I did was with my dad. It was about my dad. And it was this overwhelming fear of failure. It was, I mean, even the smallest conversations with my husband, feeling like I'm failing at this and I'm not responding well. I'm talking, my palms would get sweaty. I'm like experiencing anxiety. I'm like freaking out from a simple conversation. And
wow.
Right. And so I had to go back. And the moment that I went back to, so the idea is your first step is go back to the furthest memory that you can remember feeling this way. And the memory that we went back to is that I'm gonna get emotional. I'm sitting at the dining room table with my family and I'm eating, and I'm obviously extroverted. I've always been this way. And I'm moving around, I'm talking, I'm enjoying myself, and I knock my cup down. And it's red juice inside. And so, I mean, when you go back into, I mean, I can literally visualize everything. And I knock this cup down, and red juice spills all over the floor, and my father is furious. And he's yelling, and he's cursing, and he's angry, and he's calling me names, and he's,
oh my God,
all these things. And I feel, so the first feeling that I experience is extreme separation and loneliness. And no one's coming to my rescue. My mom is kind of scared of him a little bit. And so she's, trying to hurry up and clean everything up, but she's not looking at me. She's not saying, hey, it's okay that you dropped it. It was just a mistake. But, hey, I was doing this. I was moving around. It was an accident. It's an excuse to my father. And I can remember being sent to my room or having to eat in silence and then being sent to my room for this very small mistake. And in the EMDR treatment, your brain starts to jump to connect moments where this happens in your life, where you have that same feeling. I jumped all the way into adulthood and started thinking about my ministry career and how I started off in ministry, and I was so incredibly young. And when I would make a mistake or forget to call a parent when I was a youth pastor, I would have this same feeling of, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. I can't tell anyone. I have to hide it. If they find out, they're going to think that I'm less than. They're going to separate themselves from me. They're going to forget about me and not know me. And I go through this entire trauma treatment, and we get to solutions, and we start reconciling that my dad is this way because his dad was that way. And it's the only way that he knows how to be. And we pray for my dad, and we find the good in him throughout this trauma treatment. And it's weeks and weeks and weeks of trauma treatment. And I stated earlier that I have a Christian counselor because when I tell you, I think that there was some supernatural healing in that trauma treatment, which was last year. We prayed for him every day. I went to Houston to go visit my parents. And, it was one of those seasons where I'd gotten a divorce out of an unhealthy situation, got in a healthy situation with my husband, Sam, now. And I was really afraid to start interacting with my parents because I didn't want to get into unhealthy spaces. So I go to Houston, and I'm just so nervous about interacting with my dad. And we had argued all the time and got heated conversations and arguments. I mean, it was crazy. But I went to Houston, and my dad was a different man. Right after this trauma treatment. I had completed it. I'm not kidding. I had completed it. Two things happened that blew my mind. One, my dad prayed for me for the first time in my entire life. After 26 years. I'm not kidding you. After 26 years. And he cried in front of me for me. And
wait, he cried?
My dad.
What?
Because he loved me so. I mean, he held me. I'm overwhelmed right now just thinking about it.
I'm overwhelmed.
I'm
overwhelmed.
Just last year, and it was. I know it was a mix between me receiving healing and God just doing something miraculous through this treatment. But my dad and I, we're just like totally different. Like I can't even remember the last time we argued. It's probably been 2 years now. Like we don't even argue. We talk. I mean, it's just great. Like he's different towards me, and we've had hard conversations. And I've talked about how I feel, which I've never felt comfortable with talking to him about how I feel, because it's just all excuses. And his relationship with God has grown. I mean, it's just like. But
wait, hold on. I gotta pause there because I'm always sensitive to the women that are like, oh, well, good for you. You know, Toni, that's great. Your daddy hugged you and he held you and all that, but my daddy's not doing that. And I think it's important to note that you were getting the healing for you. You were going through the trauma treatment for you, not knowing how your dad was going to be when you returned to Houston. That's icing. That's just the icing on the cake. But the cake, the foundational piece that we all have to do, regardless of what our fathers, if our fathers, come to Jesus and repent and be like, I'm sorry, I love you, and give us everything that we desire, that's great. But the wholeness comes from us and our relationship with the Lord and the healing that we choose to seek out. And there's still hope if your relationship with your father is not what you want it to be, or it can never be. If he's not cognizant, if he's deceased, if he's on drugs, if he's incarcerated. I just need to drive that point home, because I know somebody is going to watch. Somebody's going to watch this and be like, well, what about me? But God is a father to the fatherless. I maintain that. I maintain that. So go ahead, Toni. I didn't want to interrupt you, but
I love that you said that. And I think I even want to take a moment to speak into that, because, when I was the season before, my dad started to receive healing and all those things happened. At 21, I had to make a decision to fill that gap with something else, and it was Jesus. And because I needed something more, and the accolades weren't enough, and validation from men that weren't my father wasn't enough. I really had to interact with and develop a relationship with my heavenly Father to fill that void. And while I did experience such great healing through trauma treatment, the healing journey began when I started to connect to my heavenly Father.
Right.
And I just want to say that, because here's what I really do believe. I really do believe that if my father would have never changed, I would have been fine. Because Heavenly Father filled in the gap so much, like, Lord, so much for me. So I just want to say that, because it's just so true what you're saying. I mean, it's 100% true. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Girl, you have said so much. I really need to say, if we weren't doing a live interview on Facebook, I promise you I would find a couch and lay on it and try to get some healing for my own self, because volumes about that. I don't know what it's called, something. Anyways, where I don't have these terms. I guess you substitute. Yes. Okay. I'm talking to myself while I'm talking to you, while I'm talking to y'all on Facebook. Y'all just stay with me. But and Andy had actually said this, Andy Stanley. He had said, if you have angst with your father prior to getting married, when you get married, that angst you will substitute your father out and put your spouse in. Right. But I'm saying that along the lines of whatever it is, if you have a fear of your father, when you get married, you're going to substitute your father out and put your husband in, and you'll begin to see all of these little issues that you have with your father. You're seeing it all over your life, and you're like, why am I acting like this? Why am I behaving like this?
So right.
And so what you have gotten, which I really want to get some of that trauma treatment, but that's aside. But I'm saying some of that, I feel like the Lord has processed for me. He's began to say, stop. Why are you behaving like that? Yeah. What is your dominant thought right now? Why are you afraid? There's nothing scary happening right now. There's no bear, but you're screaming bear, bear.
Yeah.
That's powerful what you said. Thank you. And it's so much. You said every time. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to say is I appreciate, and it takes maturity to do, but I appreciate you saying my father, looking at your father's history, looking at how your father was fathered. Right. Because people can't give what they don't have.
The tools.
Right. If you don't know how to give and receive love, if you don't know how to comfort when someone is hurting, if you've never been comforted, you don't know how to offer that, barring you accept Jesus Christ and he transforms your life.
It's so true. And it's hard, when you're hurting and it's a result of someone else's doing, it's hard to look at what they're processing and going through. It's just hard. It's like, well, and so, okay. So, get it together. Go figure it out. You want to say that's what the angle that you want to come at, but God's just something so powerful when you can extend grace to the people that have hurt you. And I honestly feel like God heals you even more when you extend grace to the very people that hurt you in their actions. And he gives you, like, I believe, revelation on who they are and what even made them that way and what the roots are, so that you can, separate the person from their heart and their actions and what they really want, That was so big for me. Again, if my father wouldn't have changed at all and I went through that trauma treatment, the grace that I had for him, the grace I even had for my mom, that was my next trauma treatment I went through with my mom. The grace and the patience that built up. My husband says this, I love it so much. I used to get so irritated with my parents, and this one time he said, okay, babe. He said, if a 3-year-old comes up to you and kicks you in the shin, what you gonna do? And I was like, I'd probably be like, where's your mom at? What are you doing? Let's move out, Just be all patient. If a 25-year-old comes up to you and kicks you in the shin, what you gonna do? I'm like, I'm a low-key fight because I'm crazy a little bit. And he said, well, why? I said, because, you just assume that they know better at 25. Like, you're like, better than an adult and kick somebody. What you have to start viewing people as is the level. Listen,
I know where you're going. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, y'all.
Some people are babies in certain areas, but you treat them as if they are 25-year-olds, adults, in the way that they act and correspond. And so there's almost this expectation that's built that, no, you should be acting this way. And that an expectation drives emotion. But when you take the expectation away and you say, I know that you childish in this area, I'm not going to have an expectation. Therefore, I'm not going to expose myself to such a vast amount of hurt, because I know you a 3-year-old in that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, if y'all are listening, she gonna set you free. That's so good. Now, Toni, oh my goodness. Yes. Let me just reiterate, and then I'm going to add to it. We cannot assume that the chronological age of someone will dictate their behavior. That because they are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. And then likewise, we cannot assume that because someone is positioned in a parental role because they provided the egg and the sperm to produce a child, that they are going to be behaving as parents, as our expectation of how a parent should be. Lord have mercy. That's a word. That it is one. It really is one. I think mentally I know these things, but emotionally I'm a very emotional type being, and I forget, and you still want those warm fuzzies, and you still want that nurturing. But I think with maturity and with time and with grace and with a whole lot of come to Jesus's, we could get there. A lot of Jesus. Yeah, Jesus. I don't even know that. Girl, I don't know where we are. When did you get the divorce and marry Sam? And then we got to some kind of way get to Broken Crayons Still Color. Okay. And how that, which we are talking about brokenness though. I can say I know, because you're a communicator. You are a professional communicator.
I do. I'm sitting Indian style and I'm old and my legs hurt.
Okay.
So, let's see. Timeline. In 2018 now? In 2015, I had hit a season with my church and my relationship. Oh, my husband's bringing my charger from a laptop. Thanks, babe.
Oh, wait, can we see him? No, but can we see him? Yeah.
He's amazing. We're talking about you right now. That's
good. Oh my gosh! I stopped you first, Sam. I just want you to know.
Just a Buckhead.
Oh, you're at Buckhead. Okay, nice.
But no, I was stalking you on a greater story.
Yeah, you've heard the
And
podcast.
then you got married, and I decided to stalk your wife as well. Keep it in the family. You know what I'm saying? Keep it in the family.
Yes. You've heard the podcast?
Yeah. What? I have shared the podcast. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I am a fan. I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to you right now. No, seriously. No, seriously.
Well, listen, when your story connects to God's story.
Uh-oh.
It makes a greater story. It makes a greater It makes a greater story.
Yes, it's live.
Y'all online? Oh my gosh.
I love it.
I love you.
We do. Y'all, this is Toni's husband, Sam Collier, and he has an amazing podcast, A Greater Story with Sam Collier. So y'all go and check that out and follow them. They're in a different city, maybe a different country, like every week, multiple days a week, but they're really giving out some great content. So you follow both of them.
Yay. We love this platform.
I love y'all. Okay, so wait, where are we?
Okay, so here we go. So in 2015,
okay,
I was at a church, man, going through a really hard season. At the time, Dylan's dad, who was married to my ex-husband, wasn't working. We were on WIC and food stamps, and I was driving this little red car, y'all.
Wait, what is WIC? Everybody doesn't know what WIC is.
WIC is like, it's assistance for like women and women that have kids, and they help. It's kind of like food stamps, but catered to the kid. So they provide milk and vegetables and all those different just food items for babies. So women and children. So I was on financial assistance from the church. I mean, so many different things, and our marriage was just, plummeting. There was some verbal abuse, and it was, like me and my dad, because that's what happens.
I just had that thought, but I didn't say it. Okay, keep going.
It's okay. And so, it just gotten to that point where we were roommates, and I was hurting, and it was hard. And so I decided that I would transition from the church that I was at, working full time. I was the youth pastor first, and then I was creative arts director. So I was doing all the creative stuff, branding and teams and social media and photography, video. It was crazy. And I transitioned out. He had left the church maybe about 4 months before that, and just kind of stopped going to church, battling with faith and what to believe. And so the top of the year of 2016, so for the new year, I had transitioned from the only church I knew, the one I got saved at. It was a really hard transition too. And I was also, trying to leave the marriage. It was so unhealthy. I was changing from the inside out, honestly. And so started the separation process. But for those of you that have known or have been through this, when you're in a situation like that, that's extremely unhealthy, you just battle with leaving. I'm going to go, and I'm going to build the strength. And then you're like, am I okay? Are you sure? Am I sure I should do this? And so I kind of went back and forth, January, February, March. And then finally, right around Easter, I said, I have to go. We had a huge argument, and it was cursing in front of our daughter, and it was just really bad. And decided to transition out. And so went through the divorce, top of 2016. Didn't have a job. Was embarrassed to tell people, especially my parents who didn't even know. My closest friends knew that we were having so many issues, but I couldn't dare tell my parents that they were right about me not moving to Georgia and marrying this man and, all those different things. And so I was sitting down in my living room, and I'd gotten Dylan this like 64 box of crayons. She loves to color. And she broke them all over the living room floor.
Thank you, Dylan.
She ripped these crayons of their dignity. All their little clothes had come off. It was horrible. And she drew a painting on the wall. It was just bad. And I'm, sitting there alone, and I put her to bed. I'm cleaning up these crayons, and I'm like, this is my life. This is all of this brokenness is my life. This is what my life looks like. I just left, a job. I left my marriage. And I don't even know what to do. I don't have a job. I mean, so many different things, but, I feel that I need to do this. And what's interesting is as broken as I felt, it was the most peace that I had experienced in 6 years. And I had nothing.
How is that?
I didn't. Well, one, I wasn't arguing with anyone 24/7.
True.
I didn't feel like I was kind of, dragging someone along. I wasn't the man of the house anymore. I was it. Because in the marriage, when you marry someone that just doesn't really want to be married, just kind of has that selfish, righteous indignation, you just manage everything. You become both. You become the husband and the wife and the mom and the dad. And so for the first time, it just felt like I was only responsible for me and my daughter. And I didn't have to worry about dragging someone along and getting penalized from it verbally. And just, being called out of my name and, so many different things. I didn't hear that I was stupid or that I was a bitch or that, that people didn't really like me, that, all of these things that damage the very core of who you are. And so there was just peace because it was just silence, and so I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, this is my life. And what was crazy about the season is I'm still speaking like in schools. I'm still on this like women's tour. I was doing a women's conference, hosting that conference. And I'm like, how can I get on these stages and be this person when I'm just so broken?
Mm-hmm.
The next day I had to do a talk at a middle school called FCA, Loving Good.
FCA is Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
And so I'm like, how in the world am I about to speak to these? What am I even going to speak to these kids about? And I'm scrolling down my timeline after I've cleaned up everything and cried my little heart out. And I roll past this little meme and it says broken crayons still color. And I was like, oh, we'll talk about that. And I wrote the talk out, talked about brokenness, talked about the scripture, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness and brokenness. And I got up that next morning and I gave this talk, and it was one of the best talks I've ever done in my life. And it was almost as if I'm like, I can do this. Like it's okay. I'm alone. I have a kid. I'm going to do this. I'm going to own my life. I ended up applying to Girl Scout Corporate, and I got a job with them as a community activist. So I was helping inner city kids, girls, become Girl Scouts. I didn't know if I'd ever do ministry again, but I was like, Lord, use me. I was still speaking in schools and stuff, and got my own place, got my own apartment, and then I just started doing that Broken Crowns talk everywhere, and the response. I mean, every time I would go out, it's almost like I would book something else from it. Like somebody would come up to me and just shouting it from the rooftops, that broken crayons still color, that in a world that says you have to be perfect to be used, God is saying he'll use you right in the middle of your mess, right there in the middle of the valley. That's where he does his best work, because his power is made so significant when we have weakness. And so that's how I'm here now.
And this is what, girl, don't start me to crying. This is what I really love about you, Toni, that, you have been on stages where you're speaking in front of thousands and thousands of people, and you're at a place now where you really don't have to tell people your pain or your broken places. You don't have to share them. But I appreciate that even though your platform is as substantial as it is, you haven't gotten too big for your britches. You can, for your britches, you can still tell people, yo, this is what I've come from. This is what I have walked through. And I feel like that's what people want. People don't, that in terms of Christianity, I feel like people are like, can you just be real? Can you just tell me the truth? Not that other people are telling a lie, but not lost with Christian ease, or, God is going to work it out, and God is going to work it out.
All over it. Put some oil on it.
But there are some pain places that we need to be honest about, and we need to say, I love Jesus, but I have been broken, and this is where I've been broken, and this is something I'm still processing, or, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I'm gonna be honest with you, that I would say the first year of me being at North Point, I didn't share, because I didn't, I think sometimes it's like, oh, that's in the past. And I think that when you're so wounded and so hurt and you're in the middle of the healing process, it's so hard to go back. It's so hard to think about what you've been through because you get afraid that you're going to get swallowed up by it. You're like, I can't talk about it. If I talk about it, does that mean I'm ungrateful for this current season? Am I crazy? Like, I mean, so many different things. But then when God renews you, it's like, oh, you better tell it. Like, because it would almost be a lie for people to think that you are who you are and you've gotten what you've gotten without some storm. And it's going to, like, oh my gosh, my husband did this recent message about fortitude. And fortitude, he talks about it in the sense of, we get so babied as Christians in the church. We just think all the blessings just come in and just flow, and I'm just supposed to be blessed. I give, I tithe, and so I'm just supposed to be blessed. Like, that's it. And we forget how hard the first believers fought and the disciples fought and Jesus fought. We just forget the fortitude that people who are Christians have had to have.
And have in other countries. in other countries. We kind of got a lot of accoutrements over here.
Yeah. First world problem.
Right.
But yeah, and so what happens is when you don't tell what you've been through, we start to build these lukewarm Christians.
Oh, wow.
Who don't expect to go through anything and look at all the glam and say, oh, I want that, I can get that, and I'm not going to have to go through nothing to get there. And that is a lie. Some of the most influential leaders have been through HE double hockey sticks. I mean, it's so cool that we get to just meet all these leaders, but to hear their stories, the Mike Fosters of the world and the Bob Goffs and Bishop Jakes and all that he went through with his sons and his daughters. I mean, we hear Sarah Jakes stripping. I mean, like hard stuff. Christine Kane.
Y'all get the book, Lost and Found, Sarah Jakes Roberts. I read it. It was good.
Get the book. Christine Kane, molested for half of her life by her own family members. Oprah. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. You look at all of these very successful people and you see the mantle, but not the message. You don't see what has been through.
And see the brokenness, the broken places.
Listen, if we don't share brokenness, then people won't be able to recognize the glue that holds us together, which is Jesus.
Wow.
Jesus. Counseling and wisdom, the wisdom that he gives us to go and seek counsel and get into treatments that can help us to rebuild and have new mentalities and just push those books back in. And that's what we need to see other people. That's what we need to tell other people. We're moving into the emotional. You done got me fired up.
I don't mean to. I think the fire is already there, and all I have, if I just put the match nearby, it's like. Anyways, I need to go back to the relationship.
Yeah.
We don't even have the time. I always need a part 2 with you.
I'm gonna go fast.
Okay. I need to go back to the relationship because you were so specific in describing what you experienced with your ex-husband. And I am imagining that someone somewhere, I got a message today from someone on Facebook that was like, she has 3 children. She's going through a divorce, a very painful, traumatic experience. And she's like, would I pray for her? What would you say to this woman? Because this video may encounter somebody that's experiencing domestic abuse, that's experiencing verbal abuse. They could be experiencing an affair and an adulterous relationship on the part of their spouse. Yep. What would you say? And I also want to say they may have done that because they didn't have the tools to choose a mate that would care for them and love them the way that God has designed for a man to love a woman. They just didn't know. And so innocently, they find themselves with this person.
Yeah.
What would you encourage? What would you say?
Let me say this. I love that you highlighted on tools really quickly, because when I think back to the decisions leading up to where I am, and I'm grateful that God has just made a broken story beautiful for me. I think back to the fact that I wasn't saved, that I did not know God when I was making all these decisions. And it's, I always hate the plug of Jesus and, God, but I would say that if you haven't connected with a God that can take your broken places and make them whole, do that. Because there's guidance and wisdom that only he can give you to navigate these crazy waters. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have that going into, the relationship. I just was like, I'm going to do me. But I did a podcast. It was my very first podcast about the divorce, and it was really hard for me. I cried. I was sounding crazy on there. But they asked me a very similar question. What would I tell women? And I said this. I said, the moment I decided to leave was when I had a conversation with my mom, and she said, and I said, should I leave? Well, I mean, I feel crazy. Are people in the church going to judge me? Like, what am I going to do? And she said, honey, she said, you going to take you. And you going to
what? Say it again. You're going to what?
Mama country. She said, you are going to take you with you everywhere you go. You're going to take you with you to the grocery store, to the next relationship, to the next job, and to heaven as well. And it's only going to be you. And when you take you with you to heaven, there's going to be a God, and there's going to be a moment of judgment on who you are, your heart, your actions. And the moment you allow another person to change who you are and who you're going to take with you to heaven is the minute you need to leave. And what was happening to me in my marriage is that I was becoming a horrible person because of the marriage. I fought the storm. I weathered the storm. I stayed very consistent in my faith and my beliefs. But there was a point where I was changing for bad. And I was changing as a parent. I was changing as a friend. I was angry and bitter towards everyone because of what was happening with the marriage. I was not a good employee. I was drowning in work. I was tired. I was frustrated. I was confused. I wasn't a good leader anymore. And I asked myself, but this is me. Like, I should be in control of who I am and what I do and the actions I make. But here's what else is very true. You become who you hang around. And my husband says this quote too, show me the people you're around and that'll show us your success. If you really want to be successful, hang around successful people. It's that same idea that if you are in a toxic situation with a toxic person, your very existence changes, then you have to evaluate it. Because, just the one that DM'd you, messaged you with the 3 kids, you got to be healthy for your babies. And the minute I started to change, I had to reevaluate. That's what gave me the power to leave. Because once I took myself out of that toxic situation, healing came about. I changed as a person, did incredibly amazing at the jobs and the ministries that I started to run. And I was a better mom to my daughter. I remember now sitting in the behavior therapist's office with my daughter saying, yeah, I was yelling at her all the time. I was so angry. You
were giving out what was being given to you.
100%. She was in trouble all the time. I was spanking her at too young of an age. I look back, I'm like, Lord, I'm so much more patient and graceful with her now. But I'm like, man, did I stay too long? To where now that toxic situation created a toxic person in me and a toxic parent for her. What do I need to unprocess? What do I need to pray for God to cover because of the person that I was becoming? And that just gave me the strength to leave and be a better person.
Did you have like any type of counsel, or you just were?
Oh yeah. So I got, for the people that I was closest to, I got even closer. And the people that I was not close to, I pushed away. I kept my circle very small so that the people that I knew had all the greatest intentions for me could pour directly into me. But I separated myself from everybody. People were like, are you okay? What's going on? But I just kept these people just super close to me that I just knew would pour into me good counsel. And it wasn't my parents, because they were just angry. Because they knew, and my dad was, Lord, that was a really hard season. He was just angry. And so I had to get people that I knew would want the healthiest version of Toni to come out of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And for peace to come and love to come and for grace to go back to Dylan's dad as well. So yeah. And then a whole bunch of counseling. I mean, that's the first thing.
And so there's no communication with him anymore.
No, that's not true. Many prayers and months, years later, we just this past August, we threw our first birthday party for Dylan as a blended family. I know. It's God's redeeming power. That's what that is. Because it was very hard at first. He was very nasty. Posted about me on social media, got on dating sites before we got divorced. It was hard. Really hard. So much anger and resentment and pride and no healing on his part. And it was just hard. And you talk and you have meetings and you figure out how you co-parent and you just ride the storm. To then the point where God says, all right, let's try this. And yeah, in August the 14th, we had a pool party for Dylan together. I know.
That's really amazing. And it's a hard topic. My hope is one, that women would be safe.
Yeah.
Verbal abuse is not okay. Domestic violence is not okay. Any type of danger for your mental, emotional, physical state is not okay. I highly recommend wise counsel from a church, from a counselor, from somebody, and a relationship with the Lord to ask him to lead you and to guide you during this process. So yeah, I don't know how we got there, but I knew I had to tackle that area because I know it will hit somebody personally. It will hit them where they live. And I think for myself too, when my husband and I got married, and we got 3 minutes, but when my husband and I got married, I was not fathered. My husband's father died when he was like 3. So you have two people that have a lot of brokenness coming together. I had the bulk of the brokenness. But for me,
it's always the woman.
No, I really had a lot, y'all. I ain't playing. But for much of our marriage, the early part, it was rough. It was rough in terms of resolving conflict and knowing how to communicate with one another, knowing how to comfort one another, dealing with unhealed hurts and wounds and projecting that onto him, just a lot of stuff. Yep. And there were times where I was like, Lord, this is not what I thought it was supposed to be.
Yes.
But by God's amazing sovereign grace, and I'm saying this because we can't look at other people's situations and say, well, that's what I'm going to do because that's what Toni did, or that's what I'm going to do because that's what Kia did. So I'm just giving another side, but God has helped us.
Yeah.
God has helped.
Retreat last week.
God can work. I've seen him work in some very dire situations. And I know that he did that on my behalf as well. So we are approaching, girl, I can't believe it, 15 years. 15. Oh. 15 years of marriage. Yes. So,
that's so cool.
It is a long time. Even though people think I'm 12.
I was about to say, I'm like, y'all got married at 6?
I'm about to be 40. I'm about to be 40.
That's really crazy.
But so anyways.
Face, because I need to get stuff.
I have on makeup. I haven't looked at my questions at all. I haven't looked at that. But we need to talk about this website. Okay. So when women go to the website, what type of help are they going to get? We've covered a lot of stuff. We've covered father wounds. We've covered dating issues. We've covered brokenness and pride. And what will they find at Broken Crayons Still Color?
I love the site because one of the things I told the web designers, I said, I just want to make it super simple. I want people to go in there, know that they can still be used, imperfect and broken. And then I just want them to be able to process through that on their own time. And so what we did was we created just 2 little tabs on there that have devotionals. And so the first devotional that we released is just about, generally speaking, brokenness. And so it talks about describing the areas of your brokenness and how they've impacted you. And so there's like little crayons on the actual devotional that you can print out, and you can color in how much brokenness, how much it impacted you, et cetera, et cetera. The second devotional that we released just 2 weeks ago is about owning some truth. And so in that devotional, it's all interactive. So in that devotional, you get to write out some of the lies that you've been telling yourself about yourself. And then you replace those lies with the truth. So maybe for me, like I wrote in my journal maybe about a month ago now, I was like, in that season, I was just like, I just feel unwanted. I feel discouraged. I feel tired and depressed and worn out and not enough. And I just replaced those lies with the truth and God's word and what he says about us. I am loved. I am wanted. I am desired by Heavenly Father, who's greater than the world. And I just started to write all these things down. And so the second devotional challenges you to take the next 7 days and do those truths and lies. And that is it. And what I've done also is I've broken down the devotional into blogs. And so each devotional kind of has blogs that go along with it that you can just read and be just encouraged about. And so it's super simple. It's just a one-stop shop for processing through some broken places in a very simple way.
That's good. And I didn't get that kind of stuff until I started going to counseling.
Yeah.
I grew up in a Baptist church. Then I went to full gospel. Then I went to non-denominational. Oh, it's past tough anytime, y'all.
I was Catholic. I was born Catholic.
But did you get this type of stuff in the Catholic Church? No. So this is what I'm saying. What I like about what you're offering is a merging of the counseling and the psychological along with Christ. Because I do think they go hand in hand. And like you said, God has equipped men and women with knowledge to help us understand ourselves and understand the mind and how we think and so forth. So good. I feel like we have sped through. We're almost done, y'all. We still got people staying with us. Okay. What's next? What's next for Broken Crayons Still Color? What's next for, just stick, because if you tell us what's next with you
don't want to do that.
You're probably like, first I'm doing this and I did this.
Yes. No, I'm just kidding. It's cool. Broken Crayons, it's one of those like God things. It's one of those God projects, which is very nerve-wracking. First of all, I'm a person of structure and order, and I need lots of direction. And God just puts those things in your heart and says, just follow me, and I'm going to lead you, and I'm going to release what I want to release and when I want to release it. And so what I believe the Lord has told me is just continue to release these devotionals. I'm excited though, because some of the upcoming devotionals are going to be in partnership with some other really cool women. And so they're going to be kind of co-writing devotionals with me and writing blogs about their stories of brokenness, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. We're partnering with some big brands to do some big giveaways here, very soon. So very excited about that.
All right, some free stuff.
I know. It's some really cool stuff too. So, and then what's been really cool that I've been asking God to do is just put me in front of different people, different women, more people, more women, more teens to tell the Broken Crayon story. And so I've been just blessed to be able to share it and getting booked to go and share this talk with people. I just did it in New York. I'm doing it in Atlanta. There's going to be an event on October the 27th. It's called Pray Like a Boss. And so I'm going to share
Pray Like a Boss.
Pray Like a Boss at the Atlanta Marriott. And so
is that with Work Pray Slay?
I don't know.
It's a lot of pray, work, slay,
Work, praise,
boss.
boss. Like a boss.
Yes, like a boss. Work, pray, and slay like a boss.
I'm trying to find it right now. It's amazing though. So yeah, pray like a boss. Excited about it.
I'll find it and put it in the description section.
I'll send you the graphic that have my little picture on there. But yeah, so being able to just share the message of brokenness and being honest with people. And just being like, hey, we're not perfect. Surprise.
Well, I'm so honored to have had you while we can still get an interview with you by messaging you on Instagram. I'm so glad. I'm glad that I can still do that.
Always.
I doubt that.
Okay.
I definitely doubt that. People can be like, oh, you don't message her like that. She has a place on the website. Anyways, y'all, I hope you were blessed by Toni J. Collier. She shared her soul. Please follow her. She is the real deal, y'all. She's the real deal. She's genuine. She's passionate about helping women and teen girls and just whoever needs it. I've been helped. So I want you guys to come back next month where my guest is going to be Kim Cash Tate. Ooh, I can't wait. Talk about clinging to Jesus. It's going to be so good. So you guys, thank you for tuning in and y'all take care. Bye-bye.